There's a moment most men never notice, when a woman crosses an invisible line between softness and strategy. It happens somewhere after 30, when she's felt the weight of being overlooked, replaced, or underestimated one too many times. Her smile still warms a room, but there's calculation behind it now, a quiet awareness of what every gesture costs. The danger isn't that she's cruel, it's that she's learned how to survive without depending on anyone's love. When innocence meets experience, charm becomes a weapon, and the sweetest woman can become the most powerful and most dangerous version of herself. It started with a conversation I didn't expect to remember. The kind of woman who used to laugh from her stomach sat across from me in a quiet cafe. She was 32, freshly divorced, and trying to sound indifferent about it. Between sips of coffee and small talk, her voice carried something new. Not bitterness, but resolve. She said, "I'll never let a man make me that soft again." A few years earlier, she had been the kind of woman men dreamed of marrying. Nurturing, romantic, patient. She believed love meant loyalty, even when it hurt. She built her world around a man's potential, helped him chase dreams, forgave his mistakes, waited for his maturity. But time passed, and the story ended the way so many do. He left, not for a better woman, but for a younger one who hadn't yet learned patience feels like invisibility when it's taken for granted. When I saw her that night, it wasn't just heartbreak I saw, it was the quiet rebuilding of self-respect, but layered with something colder, sharper. She'd realised that goodness doesn't guarantee safety, and kindness doesn't protect you from being replaced. That realisation changes a woman at the cellular level. It's not anger, it's evolution. I remember watching her talk, noticing how she'd begun to measure every word. The same woman who once spoke freely now chose precision over passion. She wasn't trying to connect anymore, she was calculating, not out of manipulation, but self-preservation. Somewhere between 25 and 30, she had learned the most dangerous lesson of all: love without power invites pain. And it's not just her story, it's a pattern written into countless quiet heartbreaks. The woman who once nurtured now negotiates. The one who believed in unconditional love now sets conditions for everything. Affection, time, attention. She's not wrong for it. She's just done being naive. That night as she left, I realised something unsettling. Men often mourn the loss of women's innocence without understanding what killed it. Every dangerous woman was once a hopeful girl who gave too much of herself to the wrong man. And when she finally stopped bleeding for love, she learned how to hold the knife instead. The change that happens in women after 30 isn't sudden. It's not a mood swing or an attitude shift. It's a recalibration of survival. For most of their lives, women move through the world with a kind of unspoken power, the currency of youth, beauty, and attention. It's a soft influence, often unconscious, but it shapes how they're treated, chosen, and validated. Compliments are constant, interest is abundant, desire follows them like a shadow. And even if she doesn't seek it, it reminds her daily she's seen, she's valued, she matters. But the moment that shadow begins to thin, something in her consciousness changes. She starts to notice the small things first, the compliments that come less often, the looks that linger shorter, the invitations that slow down. To most men, these details seem trivial, but to a woman, they're signals that her social gravity is shifting. The world that once revolved around her now rotates a little slower. She doesn't panic, she adjusts, and that adjustment is the birth of what men often mislabel as danger. It's not danger in the sense of malice or manipulation. It's danger in the sense of awareness, the kind that comes when innocence meets wisdom and realizes they can't coexist forever. A woman at 30 no longer floats through attention. She begins to manage it. She becomes selective, strategic. She measures her energy, her availability, her affection. She learns that giving too freely makes her predictable, and predictability invites pain. So she starts to curate her warmth, offering it like a privilege instead of a promise. Evolutionary psychology helps explain this. For centuries, a woman's survival was tied to selection, not just love, but alliance. Her instincts are wired to preserve what sustains her and avoid what depletes her. In her 20s, attraction and adventure dominate those instincts. After 30, discernment takes over. The limbic system, once flooded by novelty and dopamine, now prioritizes safety, stability, and control. But in a culture that worships youth and spontaneity, this wisdom feels like a curse. She's no longer rewarded for being deep, only for being desirable, and so she adapts. That adaptation is subtle but profound. She learns to translate emotion into leverage. Vulnerability becomes currency. Affection becomes negotiation. Not because she's cold, but because she's learned the cost of being open in a world that treats openness as weakness. It's not bitterness that drives her, it's mathematics. She's calculating energy exchange. Who gives, who takes, who's worth the risk. Men often call it games, but it's survival psychology wearing lipstick. There's also biology at play. Around 30, hormonal changes shift her dopamine and oxytocin responses. She bonds differently, desires differently. The craving for novelty fades. The craving for security intensifies. Yet the modern environment doesn't honour that transition. She's told to stay wild, to never settle, to chase freedom. But her body craves rootedness, even as her pride resists it. That internal contradiction builds pressure, and pressure without expression always becomes control. Control is where her new power is born. It's not the soft, magnetic charm of youth. It's a colder, more deliberate force. The same emotional intelligence that once made her nurturing now makes her formidable. She reads tone like a lie detector. She senses disinterest before it's spoken. She tests commitment with silence, with distance, with small acts of withdrawal. She doesn't argue anymore, she observes. She knows that whoever loses emotional control loses influence, and she refuses to lose again. The irony is that what makes her dangerous also makes her lonely. The armor that protects her also isolates her. When love becomes a strategy, intimacy becomes a calculation, and the very intelligence that saves her from pain also prevents her from peace. Yet beneath that armor is the same heart, softer than she admits, still longing to trust without caution. The problem is, trust now feels like naivety, and naivety feels like death. Men misinterpret this transformation because they experience aging differently. While women face social exploration in their 30s, men often experience social expansion. His status, confidence, and attractiveness may rise as hers is socially questioned. So when she begins to act more guarded, selective, or assertive, he sees threat where there's actually adaptation. Her danger isn't rebellion, it's reaction. She's responding to a world that measures her worth by something she can no longer control. In truth, her power after 30 isn't new, it's distilled. The energy that once sought approval now demands alignment. She no longer chases being desired, she requires being respected. And that shift changes every interaction she has with men. What once attracted her, charm, mystery, attention, now feels like risk. What once repelled her, stability, patience, emotional intelligence, now draws her in. But because she's been hurt, she tests those qualities instead of trusting them. Her caution becomes misread as manipulation, and the cycle repeats. The real danger, then, isn't that women become colder after 30, it's that they become more conscious of time, of patterns, of cost. And consciousness, when mixed with pain, can be weaponized. Yet it can also be healed. Because when a woman learns to wield her awareness without resentment, she becomes something rare, powerful but peaceful, sharp but soft, independent but still capable of love. That's the mature feminine, the one most men fear at first but secretly crave once they've grown enough to meet her there. By the time a woman crosses 30, the change inside her has already begun to ripple outward. It's not loud, not obvious, but it's there, in how she texts, how she listens, how she reacts when something feels off. The danger is rarely in what she says, it's in what she withholds. She used to overshare, hoping understanding would build intimacy. Now she edits herself, understanding that mystery builds leverage. Her silence is no longer shyness, it's strategy. When she senses uncertainty, she doesn't plead for reassurance, she mirrors your distance. She's learned that whoever cares less holds more control, and she refuses to be on the losing end of that equation again. You can see it in relationships that feel like power dances instead of partnerships. He wants connection, she wants control. He confuses her caution for disinterest. She confuses his eagerness for weakness. The chemistry is real, but it's laced with tension. Every gesture feels tested. every word measured. A man who once could win her with charm now finds himself walking through invisible tripwires of emotional logic he doesn't understand. The reason is simple. She's no longer seeking romance. She's scanning for risk. Her habits shift subtly. She delays responses, not to manipulate, but to maintain space. She praises men in moderation because too much warmth feels like exposure. She still wants love, but she wants to control its pacing. Her mind, shaped by disappointment, believes that control equals safety. So she builds rules around affection. How fast, how much, how far. It's not that she's playing games, it's that her emotions now come with terms and conditions. Even her conversations change. She once talked about feelings, now she talks about standards. She asks questions that sound simple but are loaded with subtext. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or, how do you handle stress? She's not just curious, she's scanning for red flags before she invests again. Her intuition has become her defense system, and yet that intuition, honed through pain, sometimes mistakes sincerity for danger and danger for excitement. She wants depth, but she's drawn to the familiar rhythm of chaos, because that's what her nervous system recognizes as passion. On the surface, she appears stronger, busier, more independent, but the independence is often armor. She says she doesn't need anyone, but her eyes betray a different truth. She doesn't trust anyone. Her calendar is full, but her heart feels scheduled. Her confidence, while real, is built on vigilance. She's learned to stand tall because she no longer believes anyone will catch her if she falls. Social media amplifies this new form of power. Every post, every filtered smile, every caption about healing or boundaries is part confession, part declaration. It's not vanity, it's image management. She's rewriting her identity in real time, no longer the girl waiting to be chosen, but the woman who chooses herself. Yet beneath the empowerment lies exhaustion. The constant performance of strength is heavy. The irony is, the more she insists she doesn't need love, the more she quietly mourns how pure love once felt. Men sense this shift but misread it. Some feel threatened by her standards. Others try to break through her composure by testing her patience. Both approaches fail. She doesn't respond to bravado or flattery anymore. She watches how you behave when she pulls back, how consistent, how calm, how rooted you remain. That's her new measure of safety. To her, emotional control in a man is the new form of attractiveness. She no longer wants the loudest man in the room. She wants the one who doesn't flinch when she tests his silence. Even her attraction patterns evolve. She's drawn less to fantasy and more to presence. But she still battles an old instinct, the part of her that romanticizes struggle. So she oscillates between craving peace and chasing intensity. This duality confuses men who expect linear behavior, but she's no longer linear, she's layered. Every version of her that once existed, the lover, the nurturer, the dreamer, now lives alongside the strategist, the realist, the queen. And depending on how safe she feels, one version will step forward while the others retreat. This is the paradox. She wants connection, but fears dependence. She craves intimacy, but resists surrender. She talks about vulnerability, but protects herself with distance. The danger isn't that she's manipulative, it's that she's divided between who she was and who she's had to become. And until she meets a man who can see both without judgment, she'll keep toggling between affection and defense. To the untrained eye, her behavior looks cold, but look closer and you'll see the truth. She's not trying to win, she's trying not to lose. Her every hesitation, every boundary, every delay is her nervous system saying, please don't hurt me like the others did. Yet because she expresses it through control instead of openness, men often respond with ego instead of empathy, turning what could be connection into another round of emotional warfare. And that's how the pattern sustains itself. The more she controls, the less she feels loved. The less she feels loved, the more she controls. What began as self-protection becomes self-sabotage. And while the world applauds her strength, she privately wonders if she'll ever feel safe enough to be soft again. There comes a point when control starts to cost more than chaos ever did. She's built her fortress so carefully, no entry without proof, no affection without security. But even fortresses become prisons when the gates never open. I remember a man who told me about the woman he loved in her 30s. She was everything I ever wanted, he said. Beautiful, wise, loyal, but she never let me in. He described how every date felt like an interview, how every tender moment came with invisible tests. He wasn't being evaluated for love, he was being vetted for safety. And yet, the more he tried to prove himself, the less she believed him. It's a tragic loop. Her fear of being hurt again makes her demand perfection. But perfection doesn't create intimacy, it kills it. When you can't afford to be disappointed, you never allow yourself to be surprised. Her relationships start to mirror her inner world, orderly, cautious, emotionally dry. She still posts quotes about love, still watches romantic films, but when someone reaches for her heart, she pulls back, then wonders why it feels like no one reaches anymore. The same awareness that once protected her now isolates her. She knows red flags, manipulative behaviors, emotional immaturity. She can spot them from a mile away. But what she can't always see is her own exhaustion from constant vigilance. She's become the guardian of her peace, but the peace she guards is empty. Because peace without trust isn't peace, it's control disguised as calm. Men who meet her at this stage often describe feeling both drawn to and intimidated by her. They sense her depth but feel her distance. They try harder, talk softer, stay longer, but nothing quite lands. And over time they either retreat or rebel. Some go quiet and disappear, others push harder, demanding emotion she no longer has the capacity to give. When she finally looks around and sees only temporary faces, she tells herself, men can't handle strong women. But deep down, she knows that strength isn't what drove them away. It was the walls she mistook for boundaries. Every transformation demands a test, and this is hers. Can she soften without losing her wisdom? Can she risk connection without abandoning self-respect? That's the razor's edge she walks. The danger that once protected her now becomes the very thing she must transcend. Because eventually, every dangerous woman realizes something devastating. Control may keep her safe, but it will never make her loved. And when that truth finally hits, it doesn't come as an explosion. It comes as a quiet ache. A long night alone, a phone she doesn't check, a mirror she finally looks into, not to measure her beauty, but to ask, when did I stop letting anyone see me? That's not defeat. That's the beginning of awakening. The awakening doesn't arrive with fanfare. It comes quietly, like dawn after a long storm. For years, she's worn her independence like armor, but at some point, the weight of self-protection becomes heavier than the pain that once required it. She begins to see that what she called power was in part fear dressed as strength, and fear, no matter how refined, still imprisons the heart. The moment she realizes this, something inside her softens, not back into the naive girl she once was, but into a wiser form of openness. This is the real transformation. The woman who was once dangerous because she could manipulate emotions becomes powerful because she can master her own. She stops needing to control every outcome. She no longer treats love like a contract. She recognizes that peace isn't found in safety, it's found in truth. The same intuition that once scanned for danger now helps her sense alignment. She stops testing men to see if they'll fail and starts observing if she feels free around them. There's a difference between guarding your heart and burying it, and she's finally learned to tell which is which. It's a slow return to balance. She still values boundaries, but they no longer come from fear. They come from clarity. She no longer says, I don't need anyone, with defiance. She says it with calm. Need has transformed into choice. She can choose love without losing herself, and that's the most dangerous kind of freedom. Not the freedom from men, but the freedom from her own past. When she reaches this stage, something remarkable happens in her presence. Her energy changes. The sharpness fades, replaced by quiet confidence. She no longer needs to prove her worth. She embodies it. Her beauty, though different now, has gravity, the kind that draws respect before desire. She no longer competes with younger women because she's not playing the same game. Her worth has outgrown the marketplace of attention. She isn't chasing admiration, she's cultivating peace, and men feel it. The immature ones fall away because they can't play where there's no drama. The grounded ones, though, recognize her, not as a challenge, but as an equal. They sense that her calm isn't cold, it's earned. They know that her strength isn't pride, it's restraint. She's no longer reactive, and that changes everything. When she loves now, it's deliberate. When she gives, it's sacred. Her affection is no longer a plea, it's a gift, offered to those who can hold it without trembling. Psychologically, she's integrated the two sides of herself, the nurturer and the protector. The woman who once needed saving has become the one who saves, not others, but her own soul. This integration dissolves the inner war between love and independence. She understands that dependence and surrender aren't the same. Dependence is weakness. Surrender is strength in trust. It's what allows her to finally exhale in a man's presence without fearing what that release might cost. And for the man who meets her here, his task is different. He doesn't need to outsmart her or outmaneuver her. He needs only to match her depth with stillness. The mature feminine doesn't need to be tamed. She needs to be met. She respects presence more than promises, composure more than charm. The man who stands grounded in himself becomes the only kind she can truly relax with. Because in him, she feels something she hasn't felt in years, safety without submission. This stage of womanhood isn't about revenge or regret, it's about return, a return to essence, but this time with discernment. The girl who once said yes to everything now says no to almost everything, and yet her heart has never been more open. Her danger has transformed into discernment, her caution into grace, her independence into peace. She has finally learned that her greatest power was never in how she could make men chase her, but in how she could walk away from anything that didn't honor her truth. And that's the paradox of growth. When she no longer needs to be dangerous, she becomes truly powerful. Because danger is born from fear of loss, power is born from peace with it. The woman who has faced herself, healed herself, and forgiven herself doesn't threaten men, she refines them. It always comes full circle. The same woman who once stood before the mirror counting what time had taken now looks again, but this time she counts what time has given. The lines around her eyes tell stories of endurance, not regret. The softness she once lost to survival returns, but it's tempered by discernment. She no longer looks for validation in the reflection staring back, she looks for peace in the eyes that meet hers. The danger has transformed into wisdom. The truth is, women don't become dangerous after 30 because they grow colder. They become dangerous because they finally see the game for what it is, and they stop playing by rules that never served them. What men often perceive as distance is actually clarity. What feels like resistance is simply her boundary between chaos and peace. And when she chooses herself, it's not a rejection of love, it's an invitation to meet her in truth, not illusion. The mature feminine no longer chases belonging, she creates it within. And that shift, subtle yet seismic, changes the entire dynamic between men and women. She doesn't need to be adored, she needs to be understood. She doesn't crave intensity, she craves integrity. The kind of man who can hold space for that won't fear her danger, he'll be refined by it. Because when a woman knows who she is, she no longer tests a man to prove his strength, she inspires him to rise to it. So yes, after 30 she can be more dangerous, but not in the way the world imagines. Her danger is truth, her weapon is awareness, her victory is peace. And if you ever have the privilege of standing before such a woman, one who has walked through the fire of her own becoming, remember this: she is not what time has taken, she is what time has revealed. A woman becomes dangerous not when she learns how to hurt, but when she learns she no longer has to.